God's forgiveness allows us to be honest with ourselves. We recognize our imperfections, admit our failures, and plead to God for clemency. I love imperfections. Also, in my acting, I feel very much like a storyteller, exploring the flaws of the characters that I interpret. I look for the imperfections, and I love a character that is just so flawed. I embrace the imperfections and celebrate them. We all have our imperfections. But I'm human, and you know, it's important to concentrate on other qualities besides outer beauty. I am interested in imperfections, quirkiness, insanity, unpredictability. That's what we really pay attention to anyway. We don't talk about planes flying, we talk about them crashing. What I like about film is it explores imperfections. There is nothing better than picking up sun-warmed tomatoes and smelling them, feeling them and scrutinizing their shiny skins for imperfections, dreaming of ways to serve them. Choose silence of all virtues, for by it you hear other men's imperfections, and conceal your own. The thing that you think is imperfect about you is the thing that makes you who you are. It separates you from everybody else. I have a scar on my lip, and for years I hated it. But now it's become my thing. It's like, without it, I'm not me. You can't be perfect, so enjoy your imperfections. I can't stress that enough. You will not dishonor the divine perfections by judgments unworthy of them, provided you never judge of him by yourself, provided you do not ascribe to the Creator the imperfections and limitations of created beings. You go through those awkward, dorky, geeky stages, and growing up in the industry amplifies all that. Fortunately, I have a mother who encouraged me to build my confidence from within and embrace my imperfections. I'll always stand by the first Batman. Even for its imperfections, people will never know how hard that movie was to do. A lot of that still holds up. It's not about hiding your imperfections on a shoot, it's about embracing them and being unapologetic about them. I believe I owe all the best parts of my adulthood to embracing my imperfections and showcasing them. I think as long as you wear your imperfections on your sleeve, people respect it more. Being married to a psychologist, I realize that I learn more from imperfections. In this perfect world, there are certain imperfections that catch your eye. That's what works for me. I don't concentrate on being perfect, but instead put that effort behind my craft and being true to myself. I don't conform to pressures outside of me. I am confident about myself. To me, the thing love and cinema have in common is that they are about seeing. The greatest act of love you can give to anyone is to see them exactly as they are. That's the greatest act of love because you wash away imperfections. Stage is about imperfections and working with them, whether it be from you or the audience. Do not lose courage in considering your own imperfections. The God we serve does not seek out the perfect, but instead uses our imperfections and our shortcomings for his greater good. I am humbled by my own limitations, but where I am weak, he is strong. Nothing is ever perfect. You have to make compromises and sacrifices, and it won't always be as glamorous as the fairy tales may suggest. But I do believe there is a person out there who will love you for all your imperfections and messiness. And those kinds of people will be with you for a very long time. You can't be afraid to be honest and to be yourself. We all have imperfections and fall short at some point. Showing your human side creates a sensitivity, openness, and trust. That's the beginning of the demise in a relationship, not being honest and not being you. I'm a firm believer that embracing the imperfections of making music is so much of what makes something groove. Getting rid of these imperfections runs the risk of removing a lot of the magic that makes this music really special, and diminishes music's ability to connect with us as human beings. We are all imperfect, after all. I love that feeling of, you know, we are women, we are so different, our imperfections are what make us unique and beautiful. Beauty is perfect in its imperfections, so you just have to go with the imperfections. Redemption is not perfection. The redeemed must realize their imperfections. I don't want to be perfect, but I do want to be a role model. My mom always tells me that imperfections equal beauty. All of us are imperfect. This is the very perfection of a man, to find out his own imperfections. Occupy yourself in beholding and bewailing your own imperfections rather than contemplating the imperfections of others. We should not have a petty regard for God's gifts, though we may and should despise our own imperfections. As a director, the biggest job is to discern the imperfections in emotional tone and then view it in the global picture of what you're trying to do, if that makes sense. It's a rhythm, like music is a rhythm or composition and art is a rhythm. Dialogue is a rhythm as well. It's all about confidence and how you feel about yourself. There's no such thing as a perfect woman. I like imperfections, that's what makes you unique. I don't think perfect is interesting. I think what makes life exciting is the imperfections. The process of facing and selecting our possessions can be quite painful. It forces us to confront our imperfections and inadequacies and the foolish choices we made in the past. We live in a world where finding fault in others seems to be the favorite blood sport. It has long been the basis of political campaign strategy. It is the theme of much television programming across the world. It sells newspapers. Whenever we meet anyone, our first, almost unconscious reaction may be to look for imperfections. I might be at the odd press conference with a little bit of spill on me because I'm not going to hide the imperfections of parenting. I don't think anyone needs that. If kids like a picture book, they're going to read it at least 50 times, and their parents are going to have to read it with them. Read anything that often, and even minor imperfections start to feel like gravel in the bed. Christ bears with the saints' imperfections, well may the saints one with another. You are a human being and are allowed to be imperfect, and you are allowed to be flawed. There is a lot of beauty in your imperfections, in your uniqueness. Any person seasoned with a just sense of the imperfections of natural reason, will fly to revealed truth with the greatest avidity. A true critic ought to dwell upon excellencies rather than imperfections, to discover the concealed beauties of a writer, and communicate to the world such things as are worth their observation. Instant replay ought to be thrown out. Period. It's a game of imperfections. Why is that so bad for the game? Really, I think they are trying to make the game perfect. I'll tell you what, it will never, ever be perfect. If we are interested in Christ by faith, notwithstanding our imperfections and sins, God will be our God through grace. I have faith in my imperfections. The heart of the jealous knows the best and most satisfying love, that of the other's bed, where the rival perfects the lover's imperfections. I suspect the secret of personal attraction is locked up in our unique imperfections, flaws and frailties. There are many who criticize the United Nations, and those of us who know this institution well know that it is not immune from criticism. But those who argue against the United Nations advance no credible argument as to what should replace it. Whatever its imperfections, the United Nations represents a necessary democracy of states. Learning gives us a fuller conviction of the imperfections of our nature, which one would think, might dispose us to modesty. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.